the board may give those powers to its committee for issuance of duplicate share certificates. Now, by what are the time limits for changing to the new format of register of members, register of directors and KMP and their shareholding? A period of around 6 months has been given under the new act for you to comply with it, and out of that I think 3 months has already passed. So practically 3 months, 90 days are left, and then 1st October onwards it will be a mandatory thing to do that. Now the register of directors and shareholding before 1st April 2014 as per the need not be converted as per the provisions of the section 170. So basically what you may do, your old register you keep as it is and come out with a new register and all the new entries you can start making. Now as we are aware that there has been seesaw change in the manner of reporting the annual return. The concept of compliance certificate under section 383A has been done away. New concept of secretarial audit has come. But secretarial audit will be for the new financial year and not for the period ending on 31st March. So for that period you are required to annex with your board report the compliance certificate. So for 31st March 2014, the year what is ending, for that AGM whatever we are doing in your director's report you will have to take a compliance certificate. Now this is very interesting thing. Now the new concept of e-voting has come, and many listed companies through mergers were also required to do with the same. So now people are asking questions. If a shareholder has already voted for e-voting or a postal ballot, can that person come in the AGM or the general body meeting and vote again? Can he participate?
Yes.
So that is the perfect answer. Person will not be allowed to vote twice. Because see what is happening. If you see the rules are not put that thing in as many words. Because the rules is basically dealing with e-voting and it is concluding that a person who has already voted cannot be voting again. So that means literally if you see the words, it's in relation to the e-voting. Or in other words, this person has given a vote, he cannot be allowed to change his vote again. But it nowhere states about the shareholders meeting, and many times what is happening, the courts, high courts, in case of a merger, when they are passing that court conveyed meeting, one of the listed companies recently I have seen, they have nowhere mentioned anything about the e-voting and postal ballot. The company is asking how I am supposed to comply. If I take the result of the e-voting and the postal ballot, will it be contempt of court? Go under the act, I am required to deal with e-voting and postal ballot, yet the order what a court has passed, it doesn't talk about it. So what is the answer to that? According to me, when we are the scrutinizer, anyone is submitting the report to the court, it's very vital to point the e-voting and the postal results also as well. Because why we are talking about it in the case of the listed companies as per the SEBI circular, you have to do it as per the e-voting, postal ballot, and with the public votes are more, then only the scheme will sail through. So it's very vital to capture that.
Excuse me, if I have got 5 agenda,
Yes,
and I have voted e-voting, I have voted 2, therefore 3 I will be allowed to vote.
you can be.
So how would they have control who has voted for each?
So agenda items wise it will be. So what is happening now, I will give you without naming a company, they are doing it a merger, listed company. They are having 2 items, one is an ordinary resolution, other is a special resolution. And whenever this whole mechanism of e-voting happens, the site is very dynamic of CDSL as well as NSDL, and the scrutinizer, literally they have no role to play, any scrutinizer. Just have to click and automatically everything gets generated. So everything system has already captured. Now with regard to resolution which requires special notice under section 115, who can move such a resolution? So let's see what are the answers. Section 105 basically you see deals with the concept of special notice, and there are certain threshold limits on which some not exceeding 5 lakhs or other fees as we prescribed may be taken off. Now let's see what does Rule 23 says. It says that such number of members holding shares of not less than 5 lakh rupees has been paid up. So So these members are only entitled to give a special notice. And what is special notice in short? It basically deals with the appointment, removal of the directors and the auditors. Now, is it mandatory to keep documents, records, registers, minutes in electronic form? If the answer is no and it is not applicable to us, we should be happy. But what if it is applicable to us? And how to comply with it? You see, basically section 120 has given a time frame for every listed company and other companies having more than 1,000 shareholders to immediately have your repository ready and implemented. So in case you are having mostly this 1,000 shareholders criteria will be for listed companies. Again, how they have drafted, because in very few public companies they will be having more than 1,000 shareholders and yet they will not be listed. For all practical purposes, it is only for the listed companies. And over here, there are certain provisions which are given under the Companies Act, whereby Information Technology Act also will have to study and see how the security can be created. Now, whether all statutory registered others need to be converted? Yes, the answer is within a period of 6 months. So, up to September, we are having that time to go for that conversion. Now, who are all are required to sign the financial statements under the Companies Act 2014? The chairperson of the company or any two directors, the CEO of the company, if there is a CEO, it will be mandatory. Chief Financial Officer, mandatory. Earlier there was no requirement for the CFO to sign the account, apart from the listed company in terms of the listing agreement and the company secretary. Again, question is being asked in the public domain related to the corporate social responsibility in the section 135. You have a large group and your holding company is already doing CSR initiatives. So whether subsidiary is required to do it or not? The answer is yes, it is required to do it. Because the provisions are applicable per se to the company and not to the group. Now, whether vacation of office of director for not attending the board meetings is prospective or retrospective in effect. As we all know, the period of 1 year, if you are not attending, you will be ceased to be a director. So, for if any past by not attending the meeting, the answer lies no. 1st April onwards, you will have to ensure that director is attending at least one board meeting, otherwise there will be a cessation of office. Now another thing which is going in the public domain under section 184, the notice of interest of disclosure, basically form 24AA-299 of the road is required to be filed with the ROC. Answer is yes, we have to file it because that is a business item which requires board approval and has to be discussed at the board meeting per se only, and that will have to be filed with the registrar of company. Now again, if the board is delegating certain powers to borrowings to one of the committees, then we all know the form MGT 14 is there to report the same to the ROC. So let's suppose the limit of 10 crores has been given to that committee and it can grant within that upper limit of 10 crores. And committee in the month of July gives 1 crore, again in August gives 1 crore. So each time whether that committee is required to report to the ROC or not. The answer to this is no. Only the first time when that committee is being formed, at that time reporting has to be done to the registrar of companies and not later on. Now how to identify related parties? So just you may note down broad heads. The basic coordination will be between the CS department and the accounts department and the big groups. If the groups are very small, then no doubt the professionals will have to advise them, and a PAN-based mechanism can be driven, whereby in whatever electronic way you are maintaining your accounts, whenever a transaction with a particular individual is happening and that you have designed it in a manner that PAN number is entered, the system will automatically throw a cursor or whatever, a balloon or something like that, intimating you this transaction cannot be done. Because if the group is big, there is having complex business activity, which is going to be very tough, and I don't think apart from PAN what else can be designed. This is most practicable. Again, workshop will be required to done within the companies to educate the directors, and certain responsibilities will also have to be given to the directors. And for the compliance prospective directors themselves, though they are not required, but disclosure should be given by them. Then frequency of ownership information disclosure process, as we were discussing, would have to be devised. What is the frequency by any addition, deletion, even if it is nil, they should come and disclose. One-time exercise will have to be taken for identifying all the past transactions pertaining to 297 and 314, which are merged into 188. Now, a related party, normally master service, have we dealt this in the previous session? So, you see, normally most of the companies enter a master service agreement to decide overall framework providing services or goods. So, will approval be required at the time of entering into that or subsequently? You see, the intention of the regulators is very clear that you will require the approval, terms and conditions of the contracts and transactions. Further, the definition is contract and arrangement. So, MSA is an arrangement, will require the specific approval wherever it requires. Now, may not be required if it is very general. So, again, what I am trying to highlight here, your whatever agreement you are relying upon, how it has been drafted and what are the clause therein. It will all boil down to that, and answer cannot be yes or a no. So, we cannot go with any preconceived thoughts. If I am entering into this, I am out of it or I am into it. So, again, what type of agreement has been created, it will depend on that. Now, I will just touch very briefly some of the very vital forms and certain time frames has been changed. Form INC 22, basically Form 18, we are very aware about under the Companies Act 1956. Form 18 means registered office, has something to do with registered office, we are all aware of it. So, in case of incorporation, within 30 days we have to file that, but if there is any change in the registered office within 15 days, and see, this is a big departure. Earlier that 30 days uniform period was there. So now within 15 days we have to, for any change we have to report. Now, filing of return of allotment with the registrar. Form 2, basically the new form is EAS 3, and certain requirements under the rules also will have to be complied with. DPT 4 relating to deposits, no doubt the criteria for 3 months is literally irrelevant at this point of time because certain extension go has been given, and no doubt there has been a lot of debate in the public domain as such. What will happen to deposits which were exempted under the Companies Act 1956, yet they are out of the definition of that exemption under the new Act? Are they required to be refunded? There are various schools of thought. Each specialist would be having their own thought as such, but as per my limited understanding of the subject, Act nowhere creates a distinction between exempted deposits under the Companies Act to not to be refunded under the new Act. According to me, they would have to be refunded. The question will arise what they were retrospective and all that. That is again a subject matter of litigation with the regulators. CHG1, basically relating to the charge, within 30 days we have to file this form, and if it is not, then with penalty within next 270 days we can file. So overall period of 300 days has been given to comply with it. Now this you see is a new requirement under the Companies Act, MGT 15. It basically says that a report has to be filed with the registrar of companies within 30 days from the date of the AGM. This is a new level of compliance which has come, which has to be reported to registrar of company. Now notice of interest of directors form 24AA, we are very aware of. The new form is MBP1. At the first board meeting it has to be given, and the subsequent where any changes which are happening, that has to be captured over. Now let's visit some of the policies and the codes without which you cannot operate under the Companies Act 2013. Section 149 says that there has to be an evaluation mechanism for the independent directors. In the third column you can see threshold limits for the applicability are given. But the last column is more important. The methodology for doing performance evaluation of how a criteria can be designed. Who will decide it? Whether independent directors per se they should design this criteria, or the board has to do. Obviously, in this you see the answer is very narrow but very complex in nature, in the sense that this thing should be done by the board at one level along with the remuneration and nomination committee. Because you see, nomination committee will be literally recommending the persons as independent directors. So the recommendation should come from that committee to the board level. For the content of the policy or the draft policy should come, and thereafter the board should finalize the policy and the criteria for independent directors. Code of ethics applicability is there, you can see certain threshold limits are there, and the content of the policy. More or less schedule 4 of the act is applicable, more or less, but no doubt you as a company can come out with certain more restrictions in it. 177 audit committee risk management policy, again certain threshold limits are given, procedure for internal financial control etc. are given. And that policy, if you remember, under 134(5), what we were discussing, can be captured over here instead of having a separate policy per se. It can be captured over here. So again, it will be who can constitute audit committee. It says that, but according to me, the inputs from the internal auditor should also be taken from this. Visual mechanism is required to be done by the listed companies and the other companies which have accepted deposits, and certain threshold limits of 50 crores of borrowing and balance sheet. So content of the policy you can see, basically to devise a framework where any wrong thing is being done in the business of the group as such, the same can be reported to the directors per se and draw their attention and force them to take some actions. Remuneration policy is very important now. The criteria for qualification, positive attributes and independence of director, what we were discussing 3 slides back, you see has to be taken of this group. The level and composition of remuneration, what will be the level, how you are distinguishing between the 2 independent directors in terms of the policy or the promoters per se also. Fixed pay and variable, earlier this concept was not there in the Companies Act. Now you see the definition says that fixed and variable pay component has to be recorded through a policy. Internal financial controls, again as we have already discussed. Now let's see what are the certain resolutions where 100% consent of the board is required. Without that you cannot do it. Without that you cannot do it. The first one is for section 186, equivalent section 372, where any transactions pertaining to the 100% consent of the board is required. To appoint or employ a person as MD or in not more than one another company. So you are already in MD and now again that person is being appointed somewhere else, would require 100% approval of the board. Now let's see whereby you require 100% consent of the shareholders. You are used to these ordinary resolutions, special resolutions, but there are a couple of items whereby 100% approval of the members is required. And what are those items? First, for altering the articles of association of a private company for providing that specified clause can be altered only if condition, restriction and those applicable in special resolutions are met. Second is required for appointing 2 or more persons as the director by single resolution without any vote being cast against it. Now let's see. Yes, sir.
Unanimous resolution of the members present, right?
Yes, who are present, not entire.
E-voting could be permissible. Then what happens?
E-voting persons who are participating in e-voting. Basically, you are inviting someone, they are ready to come and participate, but if they are not coming, then it cannot be forced a condition on the management. So now let's see what are the 3 or 4 items which require special notice. First, appointment of auditor, other than a retiring auditor, then a special notice will be required if someone is proposing. Appointment of person other than the retiring director will require a special notice, and we have seen the threshold criteria also. For removal of any director other than a director who has been appointed by a tribunal. Now, it's very simple under the Companies Act, board approval, shareholders approval, but you see now there are certain other approvals who are not relating directly to the directors and the shareholders, but you require approval for the outside parties also. Under 186, if prior approval of the public financial institution will be required, if certain obligations are pending there too. Scheme of merger or amalgamation of certain small companies and holdings with wholly owned subsidiary company shall be approved by majority representing 9/10 in the value of creditors, you see. So the creditors approval of around 90% is required for this kind of merger to sales route. In case of financial assets of any SIC company, then the approval is required of the 3/4 of the secured creditors. You see in the last slide the word secured was not there, value of creditors was there. So that was including secured as well as unsecured, but for this 254 it is only the secured creditors. Now we are now into the slog overs, so I think you all have to be very alive. So identification of the new provisions, including there are various criteria, turnover criteria, profit criteria. We have to calculate and see what are the compliance which are getting affected, woman director, internal audit, etc. Identification of holding subsidiary and associate company based on the change in the definition of the total share capital, and now to determine those companies, the preference shares are also getting into that. So that's a major computation required. Checking companies throughout the group, as we know the compliance is very tough under the Companies Act. So there may be many companies which are dormant in nature, so to go through an exit procedure for those companies. Now let's take for the statutory auditor what as a company I am required to do. What are the main bulleted points? Review of the term of the auditor is required, review of the services what auditor is providing, review of the eligibility of the auditor to continue services in the companies. Other requirements relating to audit not pertaining financial but cost audit. Secretarial audit is now mandatory, so the scope of work is required, internal audit is required. Board meetings. So what are the compliance aspects basically dealing with the board meetings what we have to take into consideration. Notice of the board meeting, now facility of video conferencing is there, so whether those infrastructure is required or not. Last Sunday only I was at Agri Study Circle and we were discussing, I put a very innocent thought, but with not so innocent mindset. Basically you are allowed to do video conferencing. Can I do with my mobile phone? Because the act basically says that recording capacity should be there. So I can say the company secretary or director will say you take your mobile phone, you start recording. The answer is no, you cannot do that because your mobile phone doesn't allow a server backup to create a security there. But the plain reading if you see of the section, you think you can do it, but when you go to the rules you are not allowed to do it.
iPad and WX.
But where is the server? No, but then we will, myself will require two connections because once when the director is present and when you are telecasting, everything should be through one network. How you will ensure that everything is falling into one network? Now disinterested directors are there even for private limited companies. Resolution by circulation, there are change in norms. Board constitution, what are the key takeaways from the Companies Act 2013? Reconstitution of the board will be required to appoint women directors wherever required, independent director, and the more important concept of resident director as well. There may be many foreign companies who are not having resident director, so they would be required to comply with it. Appointment designation of the KMP as per the section 203.
Resident director, the resident, this has to be seen from after 1st April?
1st April. So I cannot be held penalty. I didn't know I have to be there in order to be a director. You will be from first your period, from whatever your period service starting from 1st April, from there 180 days we have to ensure. So in other words, we can say for considering this 1st April is the start date. And whatever in past has happened, that will not be taken. Determining directors liable who will be retiring by rotation, maximum number of directors to be reviewed in terms of. Now board process. New disclosure of interest mechanism is there that 184, 189 read with 185, 188 has to be recorded. Independent directors disclosure is required, a disclosure from independent director. Checking of directors disqualification, for instance if the person is director of the company which has not filed financial statement, they will be coming over there. And certain exemptions they are coming on to the private limited companies per se. So So you see the language is very tricky over there, or they have missed out, and I think we have drawn the attention of the ministry. Kaushik Bhai has just made a representation there. The words, if you see, I'm not able to recollect the exact wording, but in case those exemptions are applicable, if you are a private company, you can do it. That was never the intent, and the private limited companies are also getting covered. Now there are certain restrictions on the directors which were not existence earlier, and there is no clarity on the act which says how to comply with them. Non-cash transactions cannot be done, so directors have to be updated and periodic disclosure should be taken. Though nowhere in the act it says that forward dealing is banned, insider trading, the concept of insider trading has come. So how to comply with it? All the companies would be required to adopt their own insider trading policies even though they are not listed. Now, I could go through forming 8 or 10 items which require framing of certain codes, policies and certain documents which are required in order to be compliant. Vigil mechanism, CSR policy, code of conduct for the independent director, remuneration policy, policy on performance evaluation of independent directors, policy on related party transactions, selected criteria for independent directors, contracts required for appointment of managing director and full-time director, an appointment letter is required to be given in terms of 149 to the independent director. With that, I sum up my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The presentation will definitely help us in complying the new provisions. Since we have a little time and with the permission of the speaker, we can put some questions from the floor.
We understand what the purpose of counting, very financial statements. We are not concerned about the company that is certain. But for the purpose of compiling annual return, so all those regular companies that we have.
Annual return also, sir, we have to do it as per the old provision, Form 20B, what we were having.
That holding subsidiary company, all those.
Whatever you, for that purpose, you forget about the new company that for us. Whatever you are doing in the old life, you have to do that.
But the form has changed. Apply the new form for annual return.
20. Yes, sir. 274 1G of the order. Yes, sir. What about it?
Because some companies before, I as a director get disqualified. And we assist my directorship with other companies.
So then, in that case, I as a director should have been vigilant of the first non-compliance itself. It's up to my choice whether I want to deal with what type of people.
Unfortunately, it's already done. I can't.
No, but at any point of time I was a director, I should have been aware. That is a very basic requirement under the Companies Act, and if I as a director am not able to fulfill it, then I don't think I have any right to continue as a director. It's something like a very example which is coming. Every year I am required to pay my membership fees to the institute. And if I forget it, then I can't say that for some other matter I was occupied, so I was not able to look at it. But how can director say is not part of a company? Because director is running the company.
Basically, your ROC just cannot the rules overnight. And no time frame only in the your community coming into me and pay your fee, you get your food. Suddenly, because of the new forms coming in, your the accepting the form, the director and technically on site becomes disqualified.
Sir, I can't answer much into that what ministry is doing, but for a second I will presume that the ministry is sitting over here. And what Mr. Bhardwaj has answered to the similar questions is, he says that even his staff don't know what is happening.
Hmm.